Thanks so much for joining. My name is Megan Scott. I'm the Chief Vision Officer at Beacon Bridge Wealth Partners, and I'm thrilled to be able to be here today with Julie. Julie Palumbo, the owner of Best Whole Self, is going to be taking us through some amazing healthy changes that we can make for our Thanksgiving menu. And we thought, what a perfect time other than post-election this week to really focus on, the things that we can control and the things that we can do to help us to live well. So at Beacon Bridge Wealth Partners, that is our motto. Our motto is to help people plan to live well. And so we work with strategic partners like Julie. Julie's a financial advisor a long time ago, and now is a nutritionist and owner of Best Whole Self. And we work with people like Julie who also think about holistic wellness for their clients. It takes a lot. It takes a village. It takes a lot of thinking through what does that mean, holistic wellness. And at Beacon Bridge, we see financial planning through the lens of health, relationships, lifestyle, and purpose. So we are going to focus today on kind of a little bit of that health piece and a little bit of that lifestyle piece as Julie takes us through the recipes. So thanks so much for joining us, Julie, and we can't wait to see what you're making.
Thanks, Meg. And hey, everyone. Again, it is a pleasure being here. I'm Julie Palumbo, and we are going to make some of my favorite dishes, particularly for the holiday season. If you had the opportunity to look at the menu ahead of time, you will notice that it's a lot of great flavors of the season. For our autumn quinoa salad, it's right there in the name. We're going to put a lot of like butternut squash and craisins and pomegranates, all great foods from this season are going into this dish. And the reason I love this autumn quinoa salad and why it's part of this this cooking demo today is that it's actually a really great substitute for stuffing for Thanksgiving. It is beautiful. It's a lot of bright colors. You could adjust if you have someone who's coming or if you yourself are dairy free, you could just omit the feta cheese, but it's gluten-free like I am. It could be dairy-free. If you have someone who's coming to dinner and they're like, oh, I'm suddenly vegan now, and you're like, what do I feed them? This autumn quinoa salad is perfect for that. Just omit the cheese. Then we're going to make stuffed baked apples, and that is a great substitute for apple pie. The main component of this is the apple itself, plus a nice little filling of oats, and you get some fiber and protein in with almonds and some maple syrup, so we don't add any refined sugar, and it is absolutely delicious. It's one of my favorite things to make, honestly, year round. And then lastly, we're going to finish with a cocktail because, well, the holidays require cocktails sometimes, but we're going to do a little bit of a healthy twist on it. It's not going to be straight alcohol or any kind of artificial sweeteners or mixers. So there's definitely ways to incorporate it and get to enjoy your cocktails throughout the holiday season. There's nothing wrong with that. So all of that being said, let's get started with our autumn quinoa salad. And as I mentioned, this is one of my favorite recipes. I actually had a modified version of this my first Thanksgiving with my in-laws. It was not, my husband and I were only dating at the time, and my mother-in-law was like, well, what does she eat? She's gluten-free. She can't eat stuffing. I do make gluten-free stuffing from time to time, but she made this and it just completely, I was like, I'm sold. I don't need the stuffing anymore. Everything on the Thanksgiving table is brown with the exception of maybe some sweet potatoes. So adding this bright, colorful, fresh salad to the table or to the buffet is really going to wow your guests. And it's super easy to make. And truthfully, I eat it all the time. I don't save it just for Thanksgiving. I do eat it throughout the fall. So all of that being said, we're going to add the quinoa. So I already have this pre-cooked. What you should do if you have time, so there's a few options here. The most complex is to buy your dry quinoa in a package. You have to rinse it off. For those who are familiar with it, quinoa has like a waxy substance on it. It's just a natural coating on quinoa that protects it from bugs out in nature. It's called saponin, and it is your little lesson for today. And it could taste like soap or it could taste bitter. So you want to make sure if you're just using regular dry quinoa, you wash all of that off. So put it in a sieve and wash it off. Then you're going to boil it in some chicken or vegetable stock, and this is what we have. Or you could go to the slightly easier version and just buy boil and bag quinoa. That's already rinsed. Just boil your water, drop the quinoa in, it boils for 10 minutes, and it's done. Or you could opt for the easiest one, which is either frozen or dry quinoa that you just microwave. And I am a big fan of the Whole Foods brand 365 has frozen quinoa. So you just pour however much you need into a bowl and microwave it, and you're good to go. There's no boiling involved. You don't have to worry about the quinoa sticking to the bottom of the pot. It is the easiest. So the most difficult is having the dry quinoa that you have to wash and then boil. Then next easiest is boil and bag, and the easiest is what you microwave. Choose your own adventure. Whatever helps you get it done is great. And speaking of, we are going into our roasted butternut squash. That also, for the sake of time, I have roasted. And also for the sake of time, I bought it already diced up at Wegmans. You could buy it already diced up. You could buy your whole butternut squash and dice it up yourself. Or you could buy it frozen. That's another good option. Either way, you're going to roast it between 350 and 375 for about 15 to 20 minutes. This was on 350 for 20 minutes, and it came out golden brown and beautiful. So I'm just going to add some of this to our quinoa mixture. Again, just highlighting the flavors of the season. And if you're not a fan of butternut squash, or maybe your store doesn't have it, or you just want to use what's in your pantry or refrigerator, regular sweet potato is totally fine. I want you to feel comfortable in cooking and making a recipe yours. As I mentioned about having it for the first time at my in-laws, I don't even remember honestly what my mother-in-law put in it, but there were different, it was some form of this. But maybe you don't like raisins, so you omit that, or you do extra apples, or you don't do apples. Sometimes I feel like the pomegranate's enough. I don't need apples on top of it. That's okay. I'm adding feta. If you don't want to add feta, that's totally fine. You may need to add more salt though, because this is a big component of the seasoning. You may notice there is no dressing that's added. It is purely the ingredients going into this salad that is going to add the flavor. It is amazing. Trust me on this. Don't think, oh, maybe I should add. No. The parsley with the crunch and the potent flavor of the scallion mixed with the bright flavors of the apple and the pomegranate, it all works. Trust me, you don't need anything extra. So I just put the feta cheese in here, buy it crumbled, just sprinkle it in. Don't do the low fat or fat free. It's not worth it. And you're not putting a lot in there. The regular full fat feta is totally fine. And I'm adding some pumpkin seeds. If you would like to do sunflower seeds, you could do that too. Again, we are choosing our own adventure. I really like adding some craisins, but if you're a little worried about the additional sugar content in the craisins, you could either buy 50% less sugar, or you could omit those. The apple and pomegranate may be enough to just brighten it up, but I like having a little bit of the tart sweetness from the craisins added to it. Next, we're going to add a lot of spinach. Mine is already washed. I do organic. And while I'm talking and doing this, please at any time, and I'm sorry I didn't say this sooner, if you have any questions, either drop it in the chat and Meg will field it to me, or you could unmute yourself. If there's any questions pertaining to the actual recipe or anything, help in general, if you want to know about substitutions or whatever, anything is fine. And then I'm going to actually add a Honey Crisp apple. We have Gala apples for our dessert, but I think that the extra, what's the word I'm looking for? Brightness, I guess. You know what I'm talking about, the Honey Crisp apple. There's just a little extra zing to it that goes very well in this dish. But again, you can use whatever apples you have. I would say though, Granny Smith is going to be way too sour. But Gala, Macintosh, Honey Crisp, I don't know.
Basically any red apple, right, Julie?
What'd you say?
I said any red apple, like
Any red apple, yeah. Or
anything that's
even like a
red
pink
or
lady apple, that counts too.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And this time of year, I guess we're kind of leaving apple season, but we bought like the biggest bushel of apples when we went apple picking this year, and we had it for so long. And my kids just discovered that they like apples. My kids are 5, almost 3, and 1.5. So they're just like kind of getting adventuresome, and they are like crushing apples this year. That in my head, I was like, oh, I'll just make applesauce. I make it a lot, very easy in the crock pot. And we didn't even have to, like, we were just eating it like crazy, and I was making quinoa salad all the time. So whatever apples they were that we picked off the tree, they were a good option too. It really doesn't matter. Any red apple.
Julia, is this like in your experience of either serving this or having this as a part of Thanksgiving? Is it really more of like a side dish or is it a main?
So that's a great question, Meg. It is for Thanksgiving purposes. I think it's a great side. Like I said, it's a good substitute um for stuffing or even like your salad. If you don't want to serve an actual green salad, this totally duels for both.
Mhm.
When excuse me, when I am just at home though, I eat this like as a main meal. I also like adding chicken to it, so it is like a little bit of a protein in my quinoa salad, although the quinoa is really full of protein too. So you're getting a lot of protein in this salad, you're getting a lot of fiber. Adding some chicken is great. What's really great too is with the Thanksgiving leftovers, making this like the main attraction, like a main bowl of this with some leftover turkey on top. It just lightens it. So maybe the day of Thanksgiving, you're going a little heavier with the mashed potatoes and gravy and stuffing, and you have a little side of this, kind of equivalent to your little side of cranberry sauce. But then the next day, when you have all the turkey leftovers, like turkey isn't unhealthy. So just put that over a bed of this quinoa salad, and it is a really nice way to have your leftovers and not be eating all of that heavy food all over again. But that is a great question. Okay. And now I'm going to add the green onion or scallion and then the parsley, and you cannot skimp on the parsley. The parsley is really the main thing that's going to add all of our flavor and brightness. I am such a fan of just doing some freshly squeezed lemon with salt and pepper, with fresh parsley as any kind of a seasoning for a protein like chicken or salmon, or on a salad. You really don't need a lot, guys. I feel like we think we're eating healthy sometimes, but we disregard the amount of sugar and added chemicals and preservatives that could come in bottled dressings. And sometimes just salt, pepper, some olive oil, a squeeze of lemon, and fresh parsley beautifully dresses up any kind of salad. It really brightens it up, and it doesn't have to be heavy. It's really easy to digest, and again, you don't have all those added preservatives and sugar and anything else that comes in bottled dressing. And as someone who's gluten-free, I am a big advocate for just kind of skipping the condiments when I can. They sneak in gluten everywhere. And so for those who don't know, I have Crohn's disease, and I really used to suffer with my Thanksgiving meals. Like I would end the meal every time just feeling really lousy, and I'd feel sick, and I always thought it was that I ate too much, but I think like I didn't really eat much. And then I went gluten-free, and I suddenly started feeling so much better. And in addition to that, over the past 10 years, I really cleaned up my diet, and eating the foods that I can make fresh and clean, like a salad like this that I know every single ingredient going in it, and not adding a bottled thing, just really goes a long way for me in my digestive system. It makes me feel better, it makes me feel lighter. So that might be something worth considering if you're like, I want to make a change, but I don't know where to start in my health journey. Start taking away bottled dressings and just do olive oil, salt, pepper, for an acid, do like either red wine vinegar or balsamic vinegar or a squeeze of lemon and salt and pepper. And that's a really good place to start. Okay, I have to stop talking for this really important tip. When you do your parsley, I know the recipe says roughly chopped or coarsely chopped, something to that nature. You are going to tear your herbs. You never cut your herbs, because what happens is when you slice and you put your knife through the herb on the cutting board, you leave all of the essential nutrients and oils and all of that good stuff in your cutting board. So you tear your herbs. And in an instance like this where we're just mixing everything together, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to look beautiful and totally all evenly cut the same way. Just start ripping it apart and throw in your 1/4 cup of parsley. If you like more parsley, go for it. This is the flat leaf parsley. It is not the curly parsley, it's flat leaf. And you just want to tear all of the leaves off. Do not cut. Tear it. You want all this good stuff in the bowl, not on your cutting board. All right, so now I'm going to season with the salt and pepper. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot my pomegranate seeds. These little delights of freshness and vitamin C and antioxidants that we could all use this time of year. When I cook, I like to think like, how many extra points do I get for added nutrition? So if I look at this salad, this is loaded with all of the good stuff: protein, fiber, antioxidants, vitamin C, a little bit of protein through the feta, a little bit of extra protein in the quinoa with whole grains. This is a knockout dish, as opposed to something that maybe contain like 2 ingredients and not much nutritional value. You're getting a huge bang for your buck with this salad, because every serving you're going to have a little bit of everything that's going on in here. So every serving you'll have a little bit of each beneficial aspect of the meal, of the recipe, and really just the more diversified kind of diet that you could take in through different fruits and vegetables, the better. And this salad has it all. So can't forget the pomegranate seeds. That's like the cherry on top. All right, so I'm doing the pepper and just a little bit of salt. So with cooking, you could always add, but you can't take away. So if I were to season this and taste it and it was too salty, I'd kind of be stuck with it. So season a little bit, toss it up, and taste it. If you are serving this the following day, so here's another tip. In addition to saving time by buying your quinoa already cooked and your butternut squash already cut, you can make this all the day before. And it's actually one of those foods that as it sits and the flavors marry together longer, it tastes better. So who doesn't want to save time on Thanksgiving? Just make this dish, make it Tuesday or Wednesday if you're serving dinner on Thursday. And if you are letting it sit, I strongly suggest that you season a little bit now and taste it. And if it's good, it's good. It's not like it's going to be radically different. But if you feel like it's a little under seasoned, give it an extra day or two to sit and taste again before you serve, before adding more salt and pepper. Because as everything sits together, especially the feta that is naturally salty, and you're still going to have a little bit of the extra acidity, if you will, from the pomegranates and apples, and you may not need any more salt and pepper. So season a little bit, toss it up. I will tell you, I did not season my quinoa other than the chicken broth that I used for it, but I did do salt and pepper on my butternut squash, so that will also add more flavor. But if you go with like absolutely no seasoning through any component until the end, still taste it, keep mixing it up, and then you will be able to taste it before you serve to see if you need more, because no one wants an overly salty or peppery salad.
Julia, question. If you're going to make it a couple of days before, do you put the dressing on?
There is no dressing.
Oh. I guess I was thrown by the lemon, olive oil, salt and pepper
No, oh, sorry. So
comment
the
from
olive oil,
before.
salt, and pepper, that's for when you make the butternut squash. But there is
Got it.
no extra olive oil going on in this dish. It's
Perfect.
nothing else after the butternut squash.
Perfect.
The salt and pepper is really the only thing. And I'm telling you, people are gonna be like, oh, like I think you need to add whatever. You don't, and don't add anything until you taste it. It's perfect the way it is. Although I shouldn't say that. If you want to make adjustments, you definitely can. Make it your own. Maybe you like a little spice. Maybe you like it, I don't know. Maybe you're not a fan of apples or pomegranate seeds, or you can't find them. That's okay, you could omit it. But as far as the dressing goes, it really doesn't need anything else. All right, so I'm gonna mix this up and set it aside and get prepped and ready for the dessert round. So if anybody has any questions at this time, now would be a good time to ask.
Yep, you can put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand and I'll unmute you if for some reason you can't do that yourself. Feel free to post them in the chat. Just a funny aside, Caitlin says, I feel like I have ruined all my herbs by chopping them all of my life. And I said, same for me. That is something that I certainly makes perfect logical sense, but I wouldn't have said that I could have come to that conclusion on my own.
Well, you know, it's better late than never, so
Yes,
it's
right.
A-okay.
Exactly. And also the other thing, just because for some people it's more obvious than others, if you're vegan or vegetarian, like Julie had said before, you can always make that quinoa with vegetable broth instead of chicken
Yes,
broth for that substitute. So,
exactly.
depending on
Yep.
who your crowd is.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember when I went gluten-free and my family was like, so now what do you eat? Like how, like they just were thinking like there is nothing for Julie to eat out there. And they're like, so you're just gonna have like turkey at Thanksgiving? Like, no, there's other things that I could eat. But it is true. And if you are someone who is going to someone's house and you have dietary restrictions, this is a good dish to make because chances are they don't already have it. It's something a little different. It's something that everyone could try. I'm not just saying this. I always get really good reviews whenever I serve it. Like honestly, I just hosted book club and I served it as like a nice little salad for something refreshing. And it's just something so unexpected that could really brighten up, again, like looking at a buffet of brown turkey, brown stuffing, brown gravy, white mashed potatoes, and then you have this beautiful salad that has orange and maroon and green. It really is appealing to the eye. So you look like a hero bringing it to someone's house. And then also, like, it's really friendly for those who have dietary restrictions. And if you are serving it, you also could always put the feta on the side so that people could sprinkle their own feta crumbles on top. So you don't have to worry like about completely omitting it or what. If you're not sure if someone is coming to your house or if you're going to a house where someone is lactose intolerant or wants to be vegan or is vegan, serve the feta crumbles on the side. It's totally fine. It's like as if you're putting croutons on the side. It works. So it is really a great dish if you're like, I have no idea what to serve, and the carbiness of the quinoa just really hits home when you're like craving something like for stuffing. So it really like it just adds all the elements like sweet and salty and carby and crispy and light. It's really a slam dunk every single time. So I hope I'm not overselling this, but it is really one of my favorite things to make. In addition to these stuffed apples. So if you are a fan of apple cinnamon oatmeal, I have a nice little treat for you. And maybe you might want to, indulge a little bit and have one of these for breakfast one day leading up to the holidays if you have a little extra left over. But the beauty of this is that they are all single serving, pre-portioned. You don't have to worry that you're like cutting yourself an extra slice or a bigger slice. Just everyone gets an apple. It makes total sense. It's very easy to make. So these stuffed apples are honestly, like they will make your house smell incredible, especially if they're cooked in the crock pot. So you just cook it on in the crock pot for a couple of hours. It makes the whole room smell delicious, and it saves oven space. So notice we are not using a stove. I did for the quinoa, but if you microwaved it, you don't have to. And I use the stove only for the butternut squash that again could be made beforehand. Maybe even you just do the butternut squash and quinoa ahead of time and then just assemble the day of Thanksgiving. Like you definitely could make this work for you in your schedule. Maybe you cut everything up the night before and then just assemble it the day of. So we're saving ourselves a little time and adding more sanity to the holiday. We're not taking up the oven for any of these dishes. So the crock pot could go with the stuffed baked apples, and then you could use your oven for the turkey or the stuffing or, you know, the candied yams or whatever it is that you make. So freeing up space, that's another bonus. Easier cleanup, things that you could prep ahead of time. You could make the mixture for these apples ahead of time, and then you just have to core and dig out the apple, which I think is kind of the most tedious part the day of. Again, it's just about, you know, you don't have to wait until Thanksgiving to do it all. You could do things in parts. So let's get started with the mixture. So as I mentioned, again, I'm gluten-free. So these are gluten-free oats. Regardless, it doesn't have to be gluten-free or not, and it could be slow cooking oats or not. It really doesn't matter because you are cooking them. So I'm gonna do 1/3 of a cup of oats. These are Bob's Red Mill, gluten-free if you're interested, but really Quaker is fine. Anything you want. We're not being overly particular. I'm going to do 1/4 cup of these sliced almonds. This is a really great way to add protein and fiber. So essentially what it does is it makes you feel fuller a little faster. We all want that protein in our diet. We all want to add a little bit of fiber. If you can get fiber and protein in with your dessert, that is really great because it's also going to prevent your blood sugar levels from spiking. And the only added sugar we have here is pure maple syrup, which is all natural and it's not refined sugar, but it's still sugar. So having the whole grains, the fiber in the whole grains, the fiber in the almonds, the fiber in the apple and the apple skin is really actually not going to make your blood sugar levels spike, which is why I said, if you want to enjoy it for breakfast once, you definitely can. All right, so this is, as I mentioned, pure maple syrup. I got the big guy because we use a lot of maple syrup in this house, to be honest. All right. This also could be made vegan if you want to use a vegetable spread, or I'm actually using, or you could use butter, or I am using ghee, which is clarified butter. It's not non-dairy, but it is, how do I put this? So if you are lactose intolerant and you typically can't tolerate butter, this clarified butter is essentially just, there's something with the chemical process that they separate the proteins and it's more easily digestible. I'm just a fan of it because it has a very rich flavor. And if you've ever cooked with ghee, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So it just has a really rich, nutty flavor that is delicious on many things and in many things, particularly this little mixture for our stuffed baked apples. We're gonna do a little bit of vanilla extract, tiny bit. And we are going to add a little bit of salt. And I don't think that is on the recipe. So this is insider information. Oh, I shouldn't be saying this when we're on a call with a financial advisor. This is just a little hack that I'm trying to do. So adding salt enhances sweetness. So if you are tasting something and you're like, I think it just needs more sugar, the chances are it just needs some salt. So that's why if you're making plain oatmeal in the morning and you just add your own cinnamon and you add your own like vanilla, but like you don't buy it pre-packaged, which is great. Add a little bit of salt and all of a sudden it's going to taste like so much sweeter and really enhance the flavor of the cinnamon. So a little bit of salt goes a long way. Same, like that's why, you know, chocolate covered pretzels are delicious or chocolate covered chips. The salt enhances sweetness. So you don't have to add more sugar. You just have to add a little bit more, or a little pinch of salt. All right, so we have our mixture here, and I am just going to toss this together. Also, having ghee instead of regular butter is a lot easier to mix, but if you do regular butter, that's totally fine too. I'm a Kerrygold fan, like do the real thing. But if you're vegan or you are hosting for someone who's vegan, do a vegetable spread like Earth Balance or something like that. All right, so we have our mixture right here, which by the way, if it's one of those like, oh, let me lick the spoon, it's incredible. It smells delicious. I don't know if I have anyone cooking with me right now, but if I do, taste the spoon. It's really quite good. All right, so apple time. This is a little bit of an annoying process. So what you're going to do first, let me get my little knife. I have a little curved knife, but any kind of a tiny like paring knife is totally fine. So what you're going to do is dig in, because you want to core the apple, and the apple will expand a little bit in your crock pot. So after you cut the core out, you want to keep digging a little bit, get all the seeds, because nobody wants to eat that. And it really makes for a better ratio of apple to filling. So you're going to dig in here. All right. So I got my seeds out. So that's step one, get your seeds out. Then see how the skin goes right to the top. You need to give it a little bit room to expand, because it will expand obviously when it gets cooked in the crock pot. So I am just taking a vegetable peeler, or you could just take your knife, honestly, and just thinly cut like ½ inch around the top to give the apple room to expand, so it just doesn't create like huge cracks. So you want to just do this all the way around, like I said, about ½ inch. But be sure to leave like some apple there so it doesn't all like fall out. And that's it. You just want to create like this little hole, little vessel, if you will, to then scoop the inside. And this is it. This is your little stuffed baked apple. So I'm going to fill a few more of these and then put them in the crock pot. I enjoy filling the bottom of my crock pot with a little bit of apple cider, and we're using apple cider in our cocktail today, so why not just use it for both? But you could definitely do regular apple juice, or even like a little bit of water. You just need a little bit of something on the bottom of your crock pot. Meg, do I have any questions?
No, I think this one is pretty self-explanatory, and I love the fact that, you know, they're single serving, so it's kind, you know, you could share one, I suppose, if you wanted to, but you're not gonna, you know, really go back for that second slice, or, you know,
Yes.
overeat it. It's kind of like you're gonna have it, you're gonna love it, and then you move on.
Yeah, it's good if you're hosting and you're like, okay, I have 12 people coming over. Maybe you want to just do 12 apples, you know, like
Right.
super easy. Like you could figure out, you know, kind of a little bit easier how to portion for cooking purposes too. Oh, and these are great to like to reheat. So so for the quinoa salad, I enjoy it hot or cold. If you want to, like, if you're making it and putting it right out and your quinoa didn't cool yet, your butternut squash didn't cool yet, that's totally fine. It could be served hot, room temperature, or cold. However, it doesn't matter. It tastes really good no matter what. Sometimes if I have it with the protein on top for lunch the next day, I will microwave it for a few seconds just to take that really cold chill out of it. As far as the apples go, you absolutely can reheat them in the microwave as is. They reheat quite well. So put them in the crock pot, but then reheat them in the microwave, and they're great.
So basically, make as many as will fit in your crock pot, and then if they don't get eaten, they're delicious for a next day treat.
Yes, yes. And like, I mean, if you look at the ingredients here, they're literally like what you put in a bowl of oatmeal. you know,
Yeah.
like maybe with the exception of the butter, but there's not even that much. Like the amount that I put in divided by all the apples, it's really not a lot. And I would much rather, as my motto goes, you know, count chemicals, not calories. So I would much rather see you eat one of these than a prepackaged, you know, apple cinnamon instant oatmeal packets that have so many additives and preservatives
Yeah.
and junk that you shouldn't be eating. At least all this here, like, you know, all of the ingredients that are going into your meal.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking, you know, we have for my Thanksgiving, we have people that come in from out of town, so they're there for you know, Thanksgiving morning. And so you
Yeah.
could do these kind of the night before and just turn on the crock pot super early and let people kind of have this could be like the entry into the Thanksgiving day
Ooh,
too.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving breakfast.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a great idea. So, if you do that, the only reason I hesitate with the apples because they will get like a little brown, and
Yeah.
obviously when you cook it, like it won't matter. But if that's of a concern to you, you could fill it like this and take tin foil and do it like really tightly around it to
Yep.
protect it from the air and light exposure, and it's totally fine. So,
Yep.
yeah, you can line these all up, tightly wrap them in tin foil, and then the next morning just pop them right in your crock pot. And
Perfect.
if I were staying at someone's house and I woke up to the smell of these guys, I would be coming back for more, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've never tried this. I'm just thinking out loud now. But if you're like a fan of pears, like a stuffed pear could really work well here. You would probably just have to do it for less time because they're a little softer than an apple, but you could do stuffed pears too. That's a really great fall fruit as well. All right, this is going to be the last one I do because I'm being mindful of the time and I really want to get to the cocktail because that's the most fun. And apples in this area, like it is just like the most readily available thing. And I mean, you could pay to go pick them yourself, like like we did, or just getting them at the grocery store. And I really like eating for the season. One, it adds a lot of variability in your diet throughout the year if you focus on the foods that are in season throughout the year. Two, it cuts back on any kind of you know, like carbon gas emissions if you're concerned about that, because you don't have to worry about having food shipped from one side of the country to the next. You know, any little bit counts. And lastly, it really allows you to eat locally. That chances are it is naturally organic, it's grown local. Again, you don't have to spray it with any kind of preservatives or anything to get it from one side of the country to the other. So it's a really great option, and you're supporting local farmers. So, you know, shopping local, buying local, having a farm share situation, or just going to your farmer's market on the weekends. Those are all really great options to add more diversity into your diet throughout the year. It could almost even cause you to try new things throughout the year. Like maybe you typically don't eat asparagus, that's more popular in the winter, but you're like, hey, it's in season, I'll try it. So it just allows you to try more different kind of foods than eating the same things over and over again. All right, so my crock pot is plugged in over there, so I am going to just set my apples aside and bring out the ingredients for our delicious cocktail. All right. And these guys, they look so pretty too. They are really, again, it's like, you know, you bring something to someone's house and it's going to be a big wow factor, but really secretly, it did not take you a lot of time or effort, but they don't have to know that. They could think it took you all day to make these professionally looking stuffed baked apples. Okay. Oh, and by the way, the apples I used for the stuffed baked apples are Gala apples. I just got the small. They're smaller because they came in like I think like a 3 or 5 pound bag. I am more of a fan of doing a smaller apple so that the apple to stuffing ratio is more even. But if you wanted to do a larger apple, like the big Honey Crisp, that's totally fine. You might want to pour it out a little bit. But they're more expensive and you're paying for the size of the apple. So A Gala apple, Macintosh apple, those are really good options for the stuffed baked apples, just like as if you were baking an apple pie. All right, let's do the fun stuff. We're gonna make caramel apple sangria, and the recipe calls for a pitcher, but since I am the only one who would be drinking this at this time of day, I am just making 1 glass, but the ingredients are the same. You just have to add a little more or a little less. So first I'm gonna fill my glass with about 1/4 cup of ice. You would fill your pitcher with about 1/4 to 1/3 way full of ice. Then I have a dry white wine. So basically this is a Spanish wine, but opt for like Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc. That's typically my favorite. Don't do like Riesling or Moscato. Even Chardonnay is a little buttery. It's too much for a sangria. You want it light and crisp. So most common, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, you're good to go. I'm going to fill mine about 1/4 of the way with my white wine. I am then going to add 1 ounce of caramel vodka. A little bit goes a long way here. I think I've had this bottle for about 2 years, a little longer than that, because how much like caramel vodka are you drinking? But you need it. Like it adds a lot. And this is another good option that I like to bring to book club because you can make it in a large amount. It's really popular. It's light. It's fun. And lastly, we're using, this is the real deal apple cider from the farm down the street. I had it in a huge jug and it just couldn't fit in my refrigerator. So we repurposed stateside vodka bottles. They're great for like if you have a party and you want to have bottles of water around the house. They're excellent. So anyway, so I'm doing that. Pure apple cider. Nothing else is added. Yeah, of course, it's going to have more sugar because it's a juice. But if you are having your little bit of vodka, a little bit of wine, top it with this. It's going to add at least a little bit of vitamin A and C. It also is really delicious because it's satisfying and you feel like 1 whole drink is enough. I rarely feel the need to like drink several sangrias. I feel like there's just a lot going on. Now you could also, I meant to save some diced apples on the side to sprinkle on top. If you're serving it in a pitcher, I would definitely add some of the diced apples. Actually, to make it look fancy right now, I'm going to sprinkle some pomegranate seeds on top because we're being fancy. And sometimes I do a little cinnamon stick in it or cut a wedge of the apple and stick it on the side of the glass. You could do so much with this. Again, super easy things that do not take a lot of time, but you're just enjoying the beverage of the season. You're not pounding these. A little bit goes a long way. And most importantly, and just like a note about drinking, it's not even always the alcohol that's the problem. It's the choices you make because of the alcohol that's the problem. So if you're drinking at a party, alcohol just kind of dampens our judgment a little bit. So where you typically would not go for the second helping of dessert, maybe you go for it, or there's things just hanging around like unhealthy appetizers near where you're drinking and you're mindlessly grabbing 1 puff pastry after the next. Maybe you're hungover the next day, so you opt for a greasy breakfast where you normally would have a smoothie. It's like a chain reaction. So it's not always the alcohol. Like you could have vodka club that's like very low in calories, but if you have a couple of those and that leads to the midnight pizza, that's where the problem is. So I'm not saying don't drink alcohol. Of course, drink responsibly, and in addition to drinking and driving, just be mindful of the choices that you make after you drink, where it's not always the healthiest, or maybe it deters you from working out or whatever, which is the main reason why, just 1 drink, it's social, it's fun, you get to taste it, and then just move on to try other things at your dinner. I'm gonna taste it because we can't let it go.
No, you cannot. I was actually gonna make the joke earlier. It's like anytime that you're doing a cooking demonstration, your family's like, we're having that again. It's like five apple, baked some
Yes.
apples and but that looks delicious. I am actually I was saying behind the scenes when you were cooking that I am dedicated to making all of these for Thanksgiving this year. Because we do have lots of people that come that do have, different dietary restrictions, or
Mhm.
maybe they are just, trying to be mindful around drinking. So they're like, you know what, I'm not going to drink with dinner, but this would be a delicious kind of pre-dinner
Yes.
cocktail to have, and it makes a difference for there to be a choice there, and for it to be something that they haven't tried before. I feel like people tend to be like, yeah, that sounds great, like I'll try that, so
Yes.
it's a nice addition to what is normal in your kitchen.
And you could even make, like, honestly, like if someone isn't drinking, they could still like take a glass like this, fill it with ice, do a little bit of club soda and the apple cider, and put some of the pomegranate seeds
Yep.
or apples on top, and like,
Yeah,
they could
mocktail.
feel like they're part of it. If I've been there, like trying to hide a pregnancy, like you just, sneak, try to look like everyone else. Or if you just want to feel festive, but you're like, I'm done drinking, just sub in, instead of wine and vodka, just
Yeah.
add some club soda with the apple cider, and you do the same fruit topping. So if you're serving it, maybe you have a little bowl on the side with the apples and pomegranate to
Yep.
top, so that everyone could enjoy it and feel festive and not have to worry about all the alcohol.
Yeah, perfect, even for kids. Kids
Yes.
would probably love the bubbly and a little bit of apple cider, so.
Well, I also do a prosecco with apple cider.
Mhm.
And when I did that for a cooking demo, I don't know, it wasn't that long ago, and my daughter was here and she's like, I want some. So I just took a champagne flute, and I had club soda with the apple cider, and she thought it was so fancy. So
Yeah, it's great. It's
it
wonderful.
is. It's so
Very
refreshing.
refreshing.
Like that's another thing. Like you could only get this certain times of year, this apple cider.
Right.
And I know it stinks now that it's getting dark so early and people are like really feeling it. But looking at some benefits, like there's only so many times a year or so many weeks of the year that you could enjoy like homemade, locally grown apple cider. So
Yeah,
you may as well just take advantage of it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Julie, this was amazing. This was so inspiring, actually. I mean, we're sitting at the 7th, and even though Thanksgiving is the late this year, it's not until the 28th, but you're only 3 weeks away, everybody, from Thanksgiving. So start planning your menu. And thanks as always for just sharing the trade this for that, because that's really, the questions that we get, and the reason, and this, but I'm saying it for everybody else's edification. The reason that we work together is because clients really do say, I'm in a rut. I'm in a rut. I need to figure out how I can, start exercising a little bit more, but paying more attention to my nutrition. And so we want to make sure that that is a resource that they know they can always, message you and get a hold of you and say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Can we talk through that? It's really important that we come together as a community to help our clients. So that's
Yeah.
what we appreciate and are thankful for you this
Thank
year
you.
for. And we will also be back to do other seasonal varieties of this, because who doesn't need a little inspiration? And everybody loves to, celebrate the turning of the seasons with some good new recipes, and of course the cocktails.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Because you could enjoy it all. And it is. It's one or two substitutions. It's not all or nothing. It's those little conscious decisions you make, the consistency of it all that really adds up. And, you don't have to use the holiday season as an excuse to just let go and feel lousy and be like, I'm going to eat and drink whatever I want and deal with the repercussions in January. You can make little changes now that still allow you to enjoy the holidays as is, but still be mindful and add that little extra healthy boost.
Yep, it's awesome. Thank you so much to everybody who joined. Obviously, you can reach us at Beacon Bridge Wealth Partners on Facebook, on the online, Julie at Best Whole Self, and we will get back together again very soon.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.